Let me therefore re-emphasize that certificates of occupancy is a legal document instituted by the Land Act as a formal documentation, formal evidence of user rights for tenants by occupancy or registered land. There are two requirements to apply for a certificate of occupancy. The occupant should qualify as a lawful or bona fide occupant. He should have paid the landlord all ground rent of Busuulu must have been paid. And you should be a true Bibanja owner. Then you begin the process of applying to get the certificate of occupancy. The certificate of occupancy has been put into practice since its conceptualization in 1998. Some of the tenants in Uganda, especially on my land, now have legal documents about their Bibanja. By registering your Bibanja, you will have moved from the subsistence economy to the money market economy. Because the certificate of occupants can be used as collateral. This was evidenced in parts of Mubende and Gomba to assist you in investing in value addition, but also setting up model farms in your respective areas, especially now that we have PDM, which is rolling out. The ministry also introduced an application where you can use a smartphone to check on the status of your certificates of occupancy alongside the landlord title details. This has secured occupancies from illegal eviction, illegal sales, and destruction of PDM investments and other investments. You need only to download the application and register. Then keep checking on the status of your Bibanja and the registered landowner. I want to assure the nation that the NRM government is using the law to protect the tenants further and remove the unnecessary and uncalled for fear created by those who don't wish these programs to go on. The Land Act provides for security of occupancy for legal and bona fide occupants as registered land by the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda under Article 237, sub-Article 8 and 9. The security of occupancy includes the right of the Bibanja holders to occupy and utilize their Bibanja free from forced evictions by the landlords, as long as the tenants on such registered land have fulfilled their obligations by paying the annual nominal ground rent, which is Busuulu. Busuulu is the nominal amount payable to the registered proprietor or landlord by a lawful and a bona fide occupant. The amount is set by the law and not as agreed upon between the landlord and tenant. It is set by the law. We expect the district land boards to set the Busuulu rates, and once they are done, they forward them to the ministry for approval. So Busuulu is set by law. In 2023, I contacted all district local governments, especially the district land boards, formally writing to them, requesting for proposals to revise and update their Busuulu. No district local government responded, meaning that all local governments and their landlord owners are comfortable with the current Busuulu rates because no local government responded to that effect. Therefore, the statutory instrument of 2011, isn't it, of 2011, that set the Busuulu only 22 districts submitted their rates. The rest of the districts across the country never submitted the rates to the ministry. And basing on that, in 2011, the minister then set Busuulu rates for those districts that had not submitted their rates to the district. And the amounts were the annual nominal ground rent as set by government for those that did not have. For a city, one has to pay 50,000, that is annual. For a municipality, it is 40,000. For a town council, it is 30,000. For a town board, it is 20,000. And for a Bibanja, which is typically in a rural area, one has to pay 5,000. That is annual, set by government in that statutory instrument, number 55 of 2011. A copy has been given to you by Mr. Obo. As the minister responsible for lands, an amendment to the statutory instrument number 55 of 2011 has been introduced under the statutory instrument number 2 of 2025 to add the following. Tenants shall pay landlords an annual nominal rent, and the landlord must receive it and issue a written receipt or acknowledgement to the tenant, indicating the name of the person who has paid the Busuulu, the amount paid, and the year for which the Busuulu is paid for. When the tenant cannot find or identify the landlord, or when the landlord refuses to receive the Busuulu from the tenant may apply to the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Lands, Housing and Urban Development, or any officer designated by the PS for approval to deposit the Busuulu in a newly created government bank account. And in this case, if we go through our guidelines, the Permanent Secretary agreed that the sub-county chief will be the designated officer because he or she is the accounting officer. Then at a town council, the town clerk. Then in a city, the city clerk. Those will be responsible for guiding the tenants on how that Busuulu will be paid or collected. For purposes of emphasis, a registered owner shall be deemed to be absent if the landlord has never been physically located or identified by the Bibanja holders, has never been physically located or identified by the Bibanja holders. 2, the landlord cannot be traced or located by the area local leaders, and the Bibanja holders have never seen him or her in their area for their tenants. The Permanent Secretary of the Ministry responsible for lands or her designated officer, they will use the account which was opened. The account was opened using the procedures of government under the Public Finance Management Act, where all Busuulu money for the categories mentioned above, somebody refuses Busuulu and those who have never been seen at all on the land. The account name is Ministry of Lands, ground rent, in brackets, Busuulu. Currency, Ugandan shillings, UGX. Account number is 00120088 quadro 068 00120088 quadro 068. That is the account which government gave us to collect the Busuulu. Deposits on this account may be made in any bank or even over mobile money. A step-by-step guideline on the procedure to deposit the Busuulu has been developed, and a copy has been shared with you already. The Permanent Secretary shall, before approving any tenant to deposit the Busuulu into the bank account, ensure that the Bibanja owner is either lawful or a bona fide occupant. Then the Bibanja owner needs to have a recommendation letter from the area local authorities. We are doing this to discourage people who may want to take the account that has been created for granted and begin settling on pieces of land and claim that they are Bibanja holders. We believe that the local leaders are candid enough to tell who is a Bibanja holder and who is not in their respective villages. So that's why we are saying they should be the ones to recommend that actually these people are Bibanja holders on this piece of land. Then has adequate and conclusive documentation relating to the land, which shall be authenticated by the relevant authorities, still the LCs and Area Land Committee, in the area where land is located, from the village to the district level. They will need to have an inspection report from the Area Land Committee where the land is. Normally the Area Land Committees are at sub-county levels. So we believe that the recommendation by the LC, a report from the Area Land Committee, will be evidence enough to confirm that actually they are Bibanja holders on a certain piece of land. Then the tenant who is approved to deposit the Busuulu into the bank account shall, after depositing the Busuulu, retain a copy of the deposit slip or a copy of the message on their phone as evidence of paying the Busuulu into government bank account. Suppose the landlord whose money has been deposited into the government account and wishes to access their money from government account, an application form is also attached onto that regulation. So they will have to apply to access or retrieve their money, and that will be done by the PS or the sub-county chief. The 1998 Land Act provided for the security of occupants by providing for the following types of occupants. Namely, when we talk about the 1998, we are talking about the Land Act. Lawful occupants. As a person occupying land by the registered Busuulu and Mvujo law of 1928. Then also the Toro Landlord and Tenant Act 1937, Ankole Landlord Tenant Act 1937. A person who entered the land with the consent of a registered owner and included a purchaser or a person who had occupied land as a customary tenant but whose tenancy was not disclosed or compensated for by the registered owner at the time of acquiring the certificate of title. The bona fide occupants are persons who, before the coming into force of the 1995 Constitution, had settled on the land for 12 years, that is October 1983, or even more years, unchallenged by the registered owner. May I again remind the country that non-payment of Busuulu is the only reason for evicting tenants. When courts of law make eviction orders, they shall give the date not less than 6 months after the date of the order by which the person to be evicted shall leave the land. I note that the Land Act provides for persons who settled on land after the 1995 Constitution came into force to take steps to seek out their respective landlords and negotiate their stay on land with the landlords. The Land Act also provides for the acquisition of certificates of occupancy under Section 34 of our Land Act. I encourage all tenants to acquire certificates of occupancy so that their interests are reflected on the respective title. This will reduce the number of evictions, especially by the new landlords or the administrators of the estates of the deceased, who refer to those whom they find on their land as Bibanja holders to be trespassers, yet in most cases they are not trespassers. The government has mapped out over 96,000 Bibanja and processed over 500 certificates of occupancy in the following districts: Mubende, that is in Bageza, Butologo, East Division, West Division, Kasambia, Shigando, Shiyuni, Madudu, and Nabingola. We have been doing some work in those sub-counties. In Mitiana, areas of Banda, Butayunja, Chikandwa, Kachindu, Manyi, and Malangala. In Kasanda, Myanzi sub-county, in Chiboga, Nkandwa, Chibiga, Nakasozi, Muwanga, Bukomero, then in Gomba, Chengoza, and Kanoni. Those are some of the areas where we have been piloting the certificates of occupancy. At times, landlords agree for Bibanja people to be mapped out, but when it comes to signing a consent for a certificate to be given, some landlords withdraw. And yet the law requires that that certificate must be given on consent of a landlord. So we are trying to engage the landlord that it's for their own benefit, to allow those people whose Bibanja have been mapped to acquire certificates of occupancy. One, it stops other encroachers, all people, from coming on your land without knowledge. Then it gives you also time to know how many people, how much land are they using, rather than leaving them without knowing any basic information. And then when we map, there are land inventory protocols that are made, whereby the people who are occupying land, they are captured, the activities they are doing on their Chibanja is captured, and everything surrounding, including the size of their Chibanja. So it even stops one from encroaching on the land to widen or make their Bibanja bigger than what they have. So we encourage the landlords to use this as a method, because we believe that maybe when land fund is capitalized, we will look at these landlords who have worked with government to map out the Bibanja people, because it's easier then to know which landlord has how many people, and it's easier even for valuation to be conducted than these who have totally refused government to give out or map the Bibanja people. Let me therefore re-emphasize that certificates of occupancy is a legal document instituted by the Land Act as a formal documentation, formal evidence of user rights for tenants by occupancy or registered land. There are two requirements to apply for a certificate of occupancy. The occupant should qualify as a lawful or bona fide occupant. He should have paid the landlord, all ground rent of Busuulu must have been paid. And you should be a true Bibanja owner. Then you begin the process of applying to get the certificate of occupancy. The certificate of occupancy has been put into practice since its conceptualization in 1998. Some of the tenants in Uganda, especially on my land, now have legal documents about their Bibanja. You have been given a copy of the application, the certificate, and also the encumbrance. The ministry shall continue as government to engage the Bibanja holders and register their Bibanja in the central region, in Bunyoro areas, but also building on what has been piloted. Even where we have been piloting, you might find that not the entire sub-county is covered. We cover only those landlords who allow us to map out the Bibanja. And you might realize that we are in a sub-county, but it's only a village or a parish that has been covered, meaning a lot of work has to be done if we are to map out the Bibanja people on land in the country. For Butambala, the ministry had started mobilizing and mapping Bibanja in Bulo and in Ngando. But there was misinformation and misguiding from their political leaders. And as a minister, when I got that confusion, I told my officials, let us hold. Not until we explain to the leaders and also the communities to understand why this mapping out exercise is being done. I urge you, the Bibanja holders, not to vote or listen to such messages, which would cause them a miss out on government programs aimed at giving them certificates for their Bibanja. By registering your Bibanja, you will have moved from the subsistence economy to the money market economy, because the certificate of occupants can be used as collateral. This was evidenced in parts of Mubende and Gomba to assist you in investing in value addition, but also setting up model farms in your respective areas, especially now that we have PDM, which is rolling out. The ministry also introduced an application where you can use a smartphone to check on the status of your certificates of occupants alongside the landlord title details. This has secured occupancies from illegal eviction, illegal sales, and destruction of PDM investments and other investments. You need only to download the application and register. Then keep checking on the status of your Bibanja and the registered landowner. I want to assure the nation that the NRM government is using the law to protect the tenants further and remove the unnecessary and uncalled for fear created by those who don't wish these programs to go on. I thank His Excellency the President of the Republic of Uganda for his guidance and visionary leadership in resolving the problems caused by the British colonialists. I encourage the Bibanja holders also to support NRM so that we can commit and complete the processes we have started in securing everyone on land, since we are all Ugandans, and setting out the issues of dual ownership on the same piece of land. To sort out dual ownership issues, It needs a concerted effort. All stakeholders must be involved, and we must be willing and committed to solving these issues. I once again want to thank you for your kind attention for God and my country.